Good evening, or good morning, good afternoon, whenever you choose to watch this. But we are releasing on a Wednesday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern, so I'll say good evening. You are watching Wednesday Night Sessions. I am your host, Mitch Nobis. I'm excited. As I've mentioned on earlier episodes for this season, we kind of took a hiatus in 2024. And today's guest has been on my list of people I've wanted to invite to this show since before that hiatus. So I'm glad we're finally back and recording a new episode because one of my favorite books I read last year was Dearborn by Ghassan Zeineddine, who is today's guest. Ghassan is joining us from our friendly neighbor, Ohio, and he is a former Michigander. As I've mentioned also on this show before, I love getting our former Michigander writers because a lot of amazing writers have lived here before. So Dearborn is a short story collection that is indeed set in, speaking of neighbors, a Farmington, not direct boundary neighbor, but one town away, Dearborn, Michigan. So he's the author of that short story collection. And he is also a professor of creative writing at Oberlin College. And I have it here. He was also the co-editor of the creative nonfiction anthology Hadha Baladuna, Arab American Narratives of Boundary and Belonging. And he's got fiction published in all sorts of amazing lit mags. So at this point, I'll close my app and toss it over. Ghassan, thanks again for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really delighted and honored to be here. Yeah. And I guess what I can do is I could read like a short excerpt from one of the short stories in the collection. It's titled Money Chickens. And just to kind of give you very brief insight into the story, it follows well, it spans several years and it follows the relationship between a father and a son, and it's narrated from the son's perspective, and it's a retrospective narrator, and the story starts when the narrator is reflecting on the time he was 8 years old, and then it just kind of tracks his experiences in Dearborn into adulthood. Um, so here it is. So again, it's called Money Chickens. Some folks store their money in safes. Baba used chickens. I was six the first time I saw him shove a Ziploc bag filled with bills inside a chicken in the kitchen of our two-bedroom house in East Dearborn one evening back in 1988. He sat at the table wearing yellow rubber gloves that reached halfway up his forearms, a cigarette dangling from his lips. The chicken lay on the cutting board. A small man with small hands, Bob had no problem thrusting his fists into the bird's bowels. He then sheathed the body in plastic wrap and placed it in the freezer. He slipped off his gloves, dropped them in the sink, and sat back down at the table to finish his cigarette. I reached inside my pocket and pulled out my pack of candy cigarettes. I loved the first puffs because I was able to produce smoke made of powdered sugar, smoke that merged with Baba's in a ghostly swirl that hung over us like a shared thought. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Baba looked out the window. Bismillah Rahman Rahim, he said. I repeated his prayer, looking at his reflection in the window pane, the plump bags under his eyes, his thick mustache with curled tips. His face sagged with exhaustion. I had those very same bags under my eyes, giving me a somber, contemplative look for a boy so young. I'd been named after Baba's father, Ali. There's trouble in Detroit, Baba said. He had a loud voice developed from years of yelling over the sound of machines at the Ford Rouge plant where he worked. Detroit was a few blocks east. We have to hide our money from the thieves across the border, he said. I removed my cigarette from my mouth. Are we safe here, Baba? We'll be safer once we return to Lebanon. That's what the money chicken is for, to build ourselves a house back home. The money Baba made at the plant was barely enough to keep us afloat back then, not with the mortgage and the recent arrival of my baby sister. For the past month before her birth, he had been working odd jobs on the weekend to make extra cash, mostly as a handyman. But I saw him solely as a car maker. Whenever I spotted a Ford sedan or truck on the road, I suspected Baba had a hand in its making. The only home I knew was Dearborn, where I was born and raised. My parents had immigrated to America in 1982, 7 years into their home country's gruesome civil war. That evening in the kitchen with Baba, I was too young to point out this fallacy. How was Lebanon safer than America when Lebanese were killing one another in the streets? Mama entered the kitchen, holding my sister in her arms. Her long black hair was parted down the middle. She wore her hijab over her shoulders like a shawl, always prepared to wrap it around her head in the event that a male neighbor came calling. She was a tall, big-boned woman who towered over Baba and me. She sniffed the air. "I smell raw meat," she said. The cutting board was still on the table. "I found a new hiding place to safeguard our money," Baba said, and explained his stuffing. Mama's eyes widened. She opened the freezer and looked inside. "Allah have mercy," she said. "Don't worry," Baba said. "The chicken is halal. We can keep your pearl necklace and gold bracelets inside of one." "I prefer the bank safe," Mama said. Baba looked at me, telling me through his tired eyes that this chicken business would remain a father-son affair. We communicated in a private language similar to the one used between lovers. I looked back, telling him I understood. We reached for another cigarette at the same time. In junior high, I sold cigarettes to the white students in West Dearborn. Every Friday after school, I'd take the crosstown bus and get off on Michigan Avenue and stand outside the Blockbuster, the comic book store, or the local hamburger joint, waiting for boys and girls my age who were itching for a smoke. The houses were bigger and more space and more spread apart on the west side, the streets lined with oak and maple trees. I kept cartons of cigarettes in my backpack and charged $15 for a pack or $2 per cigarette because I could. Baba bought me the cigarettes. "The money will go toward our house in Lebanon," he said. He still worked at the plant back then, but had given up his weekend jobs to manage his cousin's car wash part-time. I understood that our cash businesses were tax-free because we didn't report our earnings. The real thief, Baba told me, was the IRS. I was obsessed at the time with Kurt Cobain, who had shot himself in the head the year before, breaking my heart. And I sometimes used my earnings to buy CDs. If I had possessed a grungy voice or known how to play the electric guitar, I would have aspired to die young as a musical genius. But my talent was hustling. "Care for a smoke?" I'd say to the students my age. I had become a smoker myself by then. They'd look at me suspiciously. Who was this undersized teen with baggy eyes and a mustache, they wondered. It's true, even at that age I had a full-grown mustache. What I lacked in size I gained in hirsuteness. My fingers and forearms were becoming increasingly furry. I'd remove my backpack from my shoulders, open the zipper, and let them peek inside. "Holy shit," one would say. Whenever I spotted cops, my heart raced. I always remained in place for a few seconds after seeing them, daring them to catch me, feeling more alive than I ever had before. I was sure that Baba felt the same thrill outfoxing the IRS. On Sunday nights, Baba and I sat at the kitchen table to stuff our earnings into a chicken. I wore plastic gloves just like him. As he smoked, I craved nicotine, but I didn't dare light up when Mama was home, as I knew she would yell at me and then blame Baba for encouraging my bad habit. Whenever our chickens began to smell or turn greenish from all the freezing and defrosting, we exchanged them for new ones. Baba bought a chest freezer, which we kept in the basement to store our money chickens. If a burglar ever cared to open the freezer, I wondered what he'd make of all those wrapped birds. We assigned a number to each chicken. We wrote the numbers over the plastic wrap with permanent ink markers and recorded the amount of cash it contained in our account book. To save space in the chickens, Baba would exchange his small bills for $100 ones at banks outside Dearborn. He rotated the banks he visited in the suburban towns of Livonia, Plymouth, Northville, and Canton, so that no bank teller would recognize him or find his exchanges suspicious. Whenever a trusted friend or relative planned to visit the old country, Baba would send with him or her stacks of cash, which the confidant would then give to Baba's father in Lebanon. Jiddu Ali would deposit the money into a bank account in Baba's name. One day, I hoped, my bank account would be filled with millions. And I guess I'll stop there.
Awesome. Thank you, Ghassan. I love that you
Sure.
chose money chickens. I love that story.
Thanks.
And it really highlights for me, I think one reason I liked your book so much is that I feel like in literary fiction, so many writers feel the need to be serious. And I
Yeah.
love how your voice does obviously it hits some very serious tones, but also welcomes the humor as well. Like
Yeah.
obviously Baba had a chest freezer for all the money chickens. Like it's just a funny sentence to hear.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So I appreciate the humor as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. Actually, it's a good story that one, as I was telling you before I record, I kind of have a few questions that I
Sure.
jot down, things I'm wondering about. So I'll go with this one because that was one story that I really felt like, well, and pause for the audience out there. Again, go get Ghassan's book. I can't recommend it enough because this is one of the stories that as I read it, I love the short story genre, but I also love novels. And I kept
Yeah.
thinking like the story goes on and it goes into some different places. And I really felt like the story could have been an entire novel.
Hmm.
So my first question I often like to do kind of writer's craft stuff. So I guess I'll phrase this as what drew you to short stories instead
Yeah.
of taking one or two of these and making a novel or two or a series of novels even.
Yeah, sure. So I've always been into the short story form. I've always enjoyed writing short stories. I also love the novel and writing novels. But I guess early on, when I started, when we were living in Dearborn and I started writing about the city, I knew early on that I wanted to write a linked story collection. And that is because, and I think they're great forms to capture the diversity of a community. And so I knew I wanted to capture the Arab American community in Dearborn. And the Arab American community in Dearborn is really diverse, right? It has so many different Arab ethnicities. So there's a big Lebanese community, Iraqi community, Palestinian, Syrian, and Yemeni community. And so, and there's no one Arab American experience. Everyone has their own Arab American experience. So there's no kind of monolithic representation of what it means to be Arab and what it means to be Arab in Dearborn. So I thought, like, okay, one way to kind of capture that diversity of voices and experiences is through the linked story collection, because a linked story collection allows you to capture a wide range of different voices and different time periods, and also even sometimes like different narrative tones. So like a novel obviously can capture many different voices too. You can have a multi-perspective novel or and different time periods. But the short story collection, you can really change narrative tones from one story to the next. Like for all those reasons, I thought the linked story collection was a good form to really capture like all these different voices, different experiences in Dearborn. And Dearborn has evolved a lot. Like the Dearborn that I know and that I experience is really different than the Dearborn from like the 1980s, 1990s even. Now like the Arab community is really visible now, Yeah, like the mayor is Arab American, the chief of police is Arab American. So it's really I mean there's always been an Arab community there for decades, but now it's really visible. So in the story collection, I wanted to show, there's one short story. Most of the short stories are very contemporary, but there's some like that are in the early 2000s. There's one in the late 1990s. And there's one, it's narrated by this Titanic survivor. And it's set in the late 1990s, but it's really, she tells her story like in the early 20th century. And through that, I gave a brief glimpse into what Dearborn was like during that time. So I also wanted to show through like this story collection, like how the city has evolved. And I thought I could do that by setting like stories in different time periods.
I absolutely love that, and it you can hearing you say that you can totally see the book doing that too. Like I didn't really think about it at the time, but yeah, the linked stories does give you. Well, I mentioned like you write effectively in different voices, and that
Right.
works, right? Like this genre choice then it kind of allows you to flex that muscle, so to speak.
Right, right,
Through that.
right.
I love that. And we probably should pause on the off chance we have audience members watching this. If you're not familiar with the Metro Detroit area, Dearborn, Michigan is correct me if I get this wrong, but the largest Arab population outside of the Middle East on the entire planet, I believe.
Yeah, it has like the highest concentration
Yeah.
of Arab Americans. And so like when you're there, you can really I mean the Arab community is so visible, right? It's like for instance, I was at a creative writing conference in Los Angeles, like towards the end of March. And there's actually a big Arab community in LA too. But it's not visible. Well, first, LA is such a huge, sprawling city, and it's like everything is spread, where Dearborn is like so concentrated that it's a majority Arab city, and like the east part of town, which is like the Arab part. There are a lot of Arabs in West Dearborn too, but like the Arab part of town, like you just see restaurant store signs in the Arabic, all these Arabic restaurants, cafes, um, the Arab American National Museum is there, grocery stores. I mean, I would just like walk the streets and sometimes go into a cafe or a grocery store. And sometimes I wouldn't know whether I should speak in Arabic or English. I could go either way, It's like that concentrated, so visible.
Interesting. I love that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's a thousand follow-up questions I could ask. I'm going to kind of go with the most basic. Just hearing you kind of wax poetic about Dearborn, kind of, I warned you in advance. Sometimes I cheat and give more than two questions. So
Sure.
kind of a 1B to this. As you're talking about all the different elements of Dearborn, we're recording this at a very unique time in American and world history as far
Right.
as empathy goes.
Yeah.
And I find, we're up in Farmington, have been to Dearborn a number of times,
Yeah.
and you do still, even in the 21st century, get people that are like scared to go there, and I'm like that's so kind of simple. like go
Yeah.
there,
Right.
and you'll find that people are people, and
Exactly.
different cultures have a wide range of awesome elements and delicious foods, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So if we were going to recommend to somebody who's not normally going to Dearborn, like what would be like two or three recommendations? Like where should somebody who's not familiar with Dearborn go to get a sense of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, first I'd go to like East Dearborn. And well, I mentioned the Arab American National Museum. It's right in East Dearborn on Michigan Avenue. Well, you do need that. You do need a car, right?
Oh
It's a
yeah.
drive. So you got to be in the car. It's not, unfortunately, it's not a walking city. But I would, well, different spots. Oh my goodness, guys, there's so many places to recommend. Like I would just like go down Michigan Avenue. You would see visit the Arab American National Museum, and then check out Schaefer Road, and Warren Avenue. Those two avenues have so many different restaurants, cafes, grocery stores, just to kind of get a sense. I'd also even say what I used to love to do is just like even just walk in the neighborhoods in East Dearborn, like by like Warren Avenue, just like walking through the neighborhoods, and you just see like the like how visible the Arab community is, even like just architecturally, like some of the houses have um archways out front, which is like very symbolic of Arab architecture, just to kind of get a sense of the community. One place I used to love to visit is actually, well, in West Dearborn, the downtown area has really is really become really bustling. So I would say like the West Dearborn area to the downtown area. And also Ford Field Park. We used to love going there. My wife went sledding. My wife, born and raised in Lebanon, and she went sledding for the first time in her life down Ford Field Park, which is in West Dearborn. And we
Yeah.
would go there during winter time. We'd go there during the summer. It's just there are a lot of gatherings there. It's just a beautiful spot. Yeah, it's just it's such a unique city. And actually I mentioned this in one short story where there's this at the very end of the short story of the collection. There's this short story called Rabbit Stew, and the narrator he grew up in Lebanon, but he's been living in Dearborn for the majority of his life. And at the time he's like around 17, 18 years old, and his uncle from Lebanon comes to visit. And the nephew, the narrator, is taking his uncle driving around Dearborn, and they're going to the mall. And the uncle says, Dearborn really isn't a pretty city, and the narrator gets offended. And so, there's some spots, especially in the wintertime, I think, it may not be that visually appealing, but it's so culturally rich, that it's like one of my favorite places in the world. So it's just, yeah, it's just such a unique place.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like everything else around Metro Detroit that you have to drive 20 minutes to get to a really cool
Yeah,
place where then you can be on foot, but you have to drive
e-
20 minutes first from point A to point B.
exactly, exactly.
That's just Metro Detroit in a nutshell.
Yeah,
And it really highlights like if you I like the phrase Metro Detroit a lot. A lot of people say they're
me
from
too.
Detroit, and like I don't think that's right. Like I'm not from Detroit, I'm from Farmington. Like they're very
Yeah,
different communities. But if you take Metro Detroit at large, kind of like the Tri-County area, if you want to think
so
of it,
diverse. Yeah,
it's like an unbelievable
it's
diversity.
so rich. Exactly. It's so funny you say that because we just recently moved to Northern Ohio. And we keep mentioning, like, I keep saying it exactly to your point. I keep telling my wife what's like, I mean, we're grateful to be here. Like I teach at the college here, but like the Cleveland suburbs are nowhere near as like rich and diverse as the Detroit metro area. And I always tell my wife that it's like, anywhere you go in the Detroit metro area is just so rich and, unique. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. Like you really have to experience. I wish we could get a lot more people to experience right
I
now.
know.
I was saying about America in 2025, but it's like people make fun of the suburbs largely with good reason. But in
Right.
Metro Detroit, like even our suburbs are incredibly diverse.
They're
And
exactly, and they're literally cities. It's
yeah,
not like just
yeah,
suburban towns. They're really cities.
yeah. Yeah, I have a long list of people I wish I could get to come spend some time here and
Right.
broaden their view of the benefits of immigration in diverse communities,
Yeah, for sure.
et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That actually leads to another question I have for you because again, back to your book, Dearborn, I love kind of multiple things about it. One, the strength of the writing is just incredible. Like as you know, I do some writing myself, and it's just always, how when you're reading as a writer, you can never just read and not think as a writer.
Right.
Like when you're a writer yourself, you're reading like that's a good sentence, that's a good story construction. So I love recommending your book to other writers for that reason. But back to empathy, I also love recommending your book to people just to get a sense of other cultures in America and like what
Yeah.
the Arab American experience is like because so many, I'm white, like obviously a lot of white Americans are really particularly lacking in that. Like in
Yeah, for
America, we
sure.
know we've got a race problem with the history of enslavement and
Yeah.
racism against Black Americans, but the Arab American experience is is largely invisible in
Yeah.
greater American culture at large, white
Right.
American culture.
Right.
So I love recommending your book to folks for that as well. Like, hey, read this and you'll get, at least a glimpse into it.
Yeah.
So if I could toss that question kind of to you, what would be books that you would recommend to folks or stories or just whatever? Do you recommend to folks to help broaden their empathy base, I guess, for lack of a better word, about Arab American experience or anything else for that matter?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess I can focus on the Arab American experience. And yeah, thank you so much for like your important question. And I love answering it because I get to. This is such an exciting time actually in Arab American literature because so many new books have started to be published about the Arab American experience and just showing how diverse the Arab American experience is. So there is a book that came out a novel that came out about a year ago. It's called Behind You is the Sea by Susan Muaddi Darraj, last name Darraj. And behind you is a series of novel that captures a Palestinian American community in Baltimore. And some of the stories are actually set in Palestine. So it really gives you that kind of experience. Another one is Zaina Arafat, You Exist Too Much. And that's also about the Arab American experience, particularly the Palestinian American experience, but also the queer experience. Um, then I'd also, oh goodness, there's so many novels to recommend. Another one is by Rabi Alameddin. He's a Lebanese American writer, and he's published several novels. And one novel that I actually used to teach, and it's a lot of fun to read, but there's a lot of tragic content in it. It's I, the Divine. And it's set in Lebanon, and it's also set in the United States. And what's the narrative framework of the novel, every chapter is the first chapter of a novel. So it is a novel, but he's very heavily influenced by Italo Calvino. So artistically it's really unique, but it's also very like humane, humorous, and at times tragic story. Um, there's and poets. There's Lina Tufaha Khalaf, excuse me, Naomi Shihab Nye. Just oh goodness, there's so many. Betty Shamia, she's a wonderful playwright, and she has a new novel out called Too Soon. So there's so many books out, and there's so many others that I want to recommend. But it's an exciting time in Arab American literature.
That's fantastic. I mean, thank you for that answer. That's a fantastic answer. It's also like as you're listing all these, I'm like, oh my wallet, my poor wallet. 'Cause I'm gonna have to check these out.
Well,
Shout out to libraries.
yeah, and to your point, it's interesting. So April is actually Arab American Heritage Month.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, your question really speaks to that too.
Well, perfect timing. Yeah, this will
Yeah,
probably air after April, but then everybody can
that's
stock
right.
up
That's
for
right.
April
That's right.
26th, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, perfect. Ghassan, thanks again for being here today. This has been fantastic.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. All right. Hey, audience members, thank you for joining us today. Again, Dearborn by Ghassan Zeineddine. Get a copy of that. If you're local, I do know that the Farmington Community Library has it. That's where I initially got it, and then had to buy one to start sharing with other people. It'll do that to you. Good books do that. All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time.